Councillors, the time is now 6:30 and I will declare the meeting open. I advise the public that this meeting is being webcast and members of the gallery may have their voice and image captured. By attending, you consent to being captured, recorded and webcast. Any statements made by individual persons in the course of this meeting and the statements made of those individuals are not of council. You should refrain from making any defamatory remarks or making comments about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any statements made by individuals during the course of the meeting. In the event of an emergency or the fire alarm sounding, please remain calm and wait for instructions from the General Manager and Council officers. If we need to evacuate the building, Council's emergency muster point during Council meetings is the lower car park. In the event of a medical emergency, please alert Council staff for assistance. Council acknowledges the Wanneroo peoples as the traditional custodians of this land that we're meeting on today. We pay respect to elders past, present and future, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We also acknowledge the Awabakal people to the east and the Darkinjung people to the south and other Aboriginal peoples who now live within the Cessnock local government area. We'll now open with the council prayer with Reverend Nicole Baldwin. Could all stand for the prayer, please?
Let us pray. Gracious God, we pray for the Council of the City of Cessnock, for its members and officers. Direct their work and influence their decisions to the advancement of your glory and the safety and welfare of this city, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice, and sound development may be established among us. Guide their speaking and listening to be considerate and generous in their talking, thinking, planning, and decision-making. Give them courage to say what needs to be said and humility to accept decisions with which they do not agree. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Nicole. Now, I've noted one apology for tonight, Councillor King, and we have two leave of absence that has been granted previously. So Councillor Dixon from the 5th of November to the 23rd of November, and Councillor Harrington, who was still on leave as well, from the 3rd of November to the 28th of November. Is there any other apologies tonight? No further apologies. Any leave of absences to consider? No leave of absences. Okay. Okay. Have someone to move that then, please. Councillor Pascoe, seconded Councillor Jode. All in favour? It's unanimous. Confirmation of the previous minutes of last month. So minutes of the ordinary meeting for the 15th of October. And minutes of the extraordinary meeting of council held on the 22nd of October. Could have someone to move that way. Councillor Pascoe, second Councillor Jode. All in favour? It's unanimous. Disclosures of interest. Any disclosures of interest? Councillor Jode.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a pecuniary interest on report PE 31/2025, the DA for the proposed telecommunication tower. Oh, get my tongue around that. I have no choice but to declare my interest tonight. While the report states that this will have no impact on property values, this is classed as a potential monetary implication, so that I must leave the chamber and take no part in the discussion and voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jode. Councillor Pomolsky.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a conflict of interest on report number CC 71/2025, the Community Sporting and Environmental Grant. Mine is a non-pecuniary interest of significant conflict. I'm a committee member of the Greater Branxton Football Club, and I will leave the chamber and not take part in discussion or voting. I have another one. It is CC 73/2025, classification of land, lots 6 and 7, DP 13086731 Chapel Street and 1 Bendeich Drive, North Rothbury. It is non-pecuniary, less than significant for the reason that I own property within the estate of Huntley in North Rothbury, but I choose to remain in the chamber and participate in discussion and voting as the conflict has not influenced me in carrying out my public duty.
Thank you, Councillor Palmowski. Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Yeah, for report number CC 71/2025 for the Community Sporting Environment Grant of a non-pecuniary interest, significant conflict. I'm the Vice President of the Kersley Crushers Rugby League Football Club who trades the Kersley Community Sporting Association who applied for a grant for a new line marker. I'll leave the chamber and take no part in discussion and voting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Madden. Any petitions? No petitions. We have 2 speakers tonight with regards to PE 31/2025. The first speaker we have is Councillor Jerd, or Jessica Jerd. Okay, no problem. We can do that first. It's okay. No, it's okay. We can do that. Okay, so will our speaker with regards to report CC 79 is Alex Hardy from Prosperity. Alex, we'll deal with this matter first and listen to you first. Can you hear me?
I can. Fabulous. Can you hear me just for a sound check?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Councillor. I do have a presentation prepared, but it appears as though I cannot share my screen. Just give me, I've sent a request. Here we go. Fabulous. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that, please? Yes, there's some nodding of heads. Fabulous. Thank you. As the Mayor just mentioned, I'm Alex Hardy. I'm a partner at Prosperity Advisors Group. We are the audit service provider on behalf of the Auditor General and undertook the external audit on the financial statements of Council for the year. So just in this brief presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about our audit report on the conduct of the audit, the financial results, a little bit about your cash infrastructure, and make sure there's time for questions. Now, with the report on the conduct of the audit, we did issue an unmodified opinion, which means that the general purpose financial statements can be taken as a true and fair record for the year ended 30 June 2025. This is just a high-level summary of some of the key items included in your income statement. A key theme that will run through a lot of the presentation tonight is that there was a substantial decrease in grants and contributions provided for capital purposes, largely due to dedicated assets. There was a large bundle of those that came across into Council's world from developers in the prior year, leading to a reduction in the current year. This directly impacted the operating result for the year, and as you can see, as the graph moves towards the right, the 2025 year there was a reduction on the operating result for the year. This is a further graph indicating around the grants and contributions revenue, and the lighter grey area is the capital contributions, and again a reduction in those compared with the previous year. I wanted to talk a little bit about the restrictions as well. There is a ratio that is used to analyse assets versus the liabilities for which Council has restricted for certain purposes, either under a contract or the law. An example of that might be money that's been received for a particular purpose for a grant, that contractually with that grant agreement you can't use that money for other purposes. When we calculate out this ratio, you can see a decline year on year in relation to that, which means that the Council's ability to pay short-term obligations is declining over time. a little bit about your cash itself. I just explained the concept around externally and internally restricted cash. And again, I guess this is just a more simple view that the amount of unrestricted cash available to council has declined year on year. This is the nature of those restrictions. So I mentioned an example before about the unexpended grants. There's also money that the Local Government Act tells us needs to be put aside that's been received from developer contributions to be spent in accordance with that plan. Similarly, the liquidity of the council under the metrics and the liquidity ratios that we use has declined year on year for the last couple of years, as shown by this graph. In relation to infrastructure, property, plant and equipment, a considerable portion of money spent in this area. You renewed $26.9 million worth of infrastructure during the year, with a further $72 million spent on new assets. This was mainly in the roads, bridges, stormwater areas, etc., Wallenby Road in particular. So I know that was an absolute whirlwind assessment of the year that was, as well as the audit reporting, but I'll just open up for any Q&A at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Questions, Councillor Hill?
Thank you for the presentation, Alex. It was positive to hear at the beginning for the comment around our qualification for this audit. I know in previous years we've sort of held our position in regards to the RFS assets position, and is it my understanding, is that correct, that there's been sort of a change at the state level that position is no longer sort of a negative against our audit in this instance?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The technical position on the treatment of those assets has not changed. I guess what we have been able to do is, by assessing information from the RFS themselves, as well as an understanding of what assets exist across the Cessnock local government area, is understand that the matter is in fact a not material one for the council. I understand there's a whole range of things happening at a state government level around the interpretation of law and all of those sorts of things, but the technical treatment hasn't changed. I guess we've just sought additional information and become comfortable that the matter is not a material one.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further questions for Alex? Again, yeah, thank you for your presentation, Alex. Just a couple of questions from my end. So, with regards to depreciation, there's a lot of discussion about depreciation, and I'm hoping you might be able to unpack it in simple layman's terms, depreciation in the context of where we sit right now and how it actually affects our bottom line.
Thank you for the question. Depreciation in simple terms is matching the economic life of money that you've spent on an asset over its useful life. So if you go and spend $100 resealing a road and that seal lasts for 10 years, then $10 per year flows from your balance sheet into your income statement as depreciation. So depreciation is an expense. And I guess what it is attempting to do from an economic sense with your financial statements is match the spend on an asset over the amount of time that it exists for.
Okay, thank you for that. And can you explain the factors driving the movement in the operating deficit between the past two financial audited years?
Yeah. So the main one is the reduction in the grants and contributions for capital purposes. In 2024, there's a substantial amount of dedicated assets that were received by the council from developers. For example, when subdivisions are handed over and other infrastructure that's built by developers then comes into council's ownership. So that was a $37 million difference. That flows directly through income and has a direct impact on your bottom line. So that in and of itself is the primary driver. There are some other ups and downs as well. Another example would be in the current year, there was a difference with how the state government paid out the financial assistance grant. And so there was a smaller portion of that paid up front in the current year rather than in previous years. So that had a several $1 million impact as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Alex. Again, no further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now put the matter CC 79/2025 forward for a vote. Can I have someone to move? Councillor Pascoe, seconded. Councillor Madden, all in favour? Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Madden, Mason, Pamalski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Jerd? Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to report number PE 31/2025. It's with relation to DA 8/2025/536/1, which is the proposed telecommunications facility. Now we have two speakers. So we've got speaking as resident Jessica Jerd. So when you're ready, Mr. Jerd.
Mayor, councils and staff, I object to this 5G tower by Wavecon and Optus in sensitive areas where people live, work and study. New South Wales has rules to protect the environment, especially in sensitive areas, under the Protection of the Environmental Operations Act 1997, New South Wales. Wavecon, Optus and the council are requiring all persons to take reasonable steps to prevent environmental harm, including emissions of electromagnetic radiation. Sensitive land uses like homes, schools and parks require extra protection due to this vulnerability. This tower must be assessed against this duty in Environmental Planning Assessment Act 1997, New South Wales, focusing on sustainable development and human health. The proponents have not adequately addressed environmental harm or nuisance. Residents, including myself, will be exposed to harmful electromagnetic radiation affecting our health and finances. Their environmental energy report is vague, noting a 500-metre radiation zone around the tower, but failing to clarify the levels of electric and magnetic field exposure. Emissions within the 500-metre radiation zone will be exposed to electromagnetic field at percentages of the ARPNAS standard, but have failed to indicate exactly what the exposure will be. Non-ionising electromagnetic radiations from 5G networks penetrate the skin to a depth of 1 centimetre, according to authority bodies like the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency and the World Health Organisation. My home is just 70 metres from the proposed tower, putting my family at risk. I do not consent to the exposure as I believe it poses unacceptable health risks and safety. The DA lacks clarity on exposure limits, making it difficult for residents to understand safety percentages. I urge the proponents to provide clear measures of exposure. The applicant ignores the public right to be free from non-consensual touching and penetration of their bodies by the proponent's exposure to radiation. Legal advice indicates that such exposure of electromagnetic radiation by applying force as unlawful physical contact without consent constitutes as assault under the New South Wales Crime Act. The New South Wales Supreme Court case of Pritchard versus Virginia, following the Queensland Crime Code, definition of assault, which includes the application of force through various means, including electro-energy. Touching and penetrating a person with electro-energy constitutes as a criminal assault as per Section 1 of the Crimes Act, and just following PANS guidelines or obtaining development approval does not exempt the proponents from legal responsibility under the Crimes Act. They misled the public by claiming their radiation is safe while ignoring significant health risks such as correlation between electromagnetic radiation and childhood leukemia, as highlighted by various studies and legal cases. Long-term exposure to electromagnetic fields poses leukemia risk, particularly to children, according to the WHO and the International Agency of Research for Cancer. In 1996, the Chief Medical Officer of Telstra found a correlation between childhood leukemia 6 kilometres from 3 towers in Sydney.
Extension of time, Councillor Lee, seconded. Councillor Hawkins, all in favour? It's unanimous. Please continue.
He found a 60% increase in deaths from this cancer. His study was published in the Australian Medical Journal. In 2002, the World Health Organisation declared the radiation a Class 2B possible carcinogenic due to close association to childhood leukemia. The proponents should be acutely aware that Dr. Hawkins' 1990 study is actually a supporting study to the ARPNS guidelines. The Australian Government Specialist Review Council has declared that there is sound scientific and medical evidence to include exposure to non-ionising electromagnetic radiation as a factor in chronic leukemia and deaths from Alzheimer's. The proponents must clarify the radiation levels that we'll face rather than vague percentages. Studies show that a significant number report biological effects from non-ionising radiation. The ARPNS safety standards does not adequately protect vulnerable individuals, including those with medical devices like pacemakers, cochlear implants and insulin pumps for survival. These devices are designed...
Extension, anyone move? Councillor Mason, second Councillor Madden. All in favour?
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Thank you. These devices are designed to operate in electrical fields up to 3 volts per metre. The proposed electrical field from the tower is more likely to exceed the 3 volt per metre threshold, and the proponents have indicated they will correlate with other communication carriers in the future to upgrade the tower, which will most certainly exceed the 3 volt per metre threshold. If the applicant is approved, my home and my body will be exposed to the radiation, rendering it unsafe and uninhabitable for my family unless I migrate exposure to radiation. I have to invest heavily in radiation shielding, costing anywhere from $50,000 to $1 million, which is not feasible for my entire property. The cost of shielding is a clear form of environmental harm to my property. I, along with other residents, will seek measures to protect our homes if the proponents continue without addressing our concerns that they fail in their environmental duty. I am in the process of engaging a solicitor who will engage a barrister who specialises in telecommunication radiation issues. As soon as I
thank you, Councillor Jared.
Yep. Thank you very much.
5 minutes. Thank you. Questions for Mrs. Jared? No questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now speaking for PE 31/2025, we have Mr. Mark Bade from Wavecon Operations. Thank you, Mr. Bade. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Mark Barty. As the Mayor's mentioned, I'm here representing Wavecon Operations, the applicant for the item. The officer's report pretty much covers off everything pretty comprehensively, so I won't repeat some of those things. But I think it's important. A couple of the key things here is there's a demonstrated and clear need for the facility, as you would have read in the documents. Optus attempts to service Greater Cessnock with a single site up on Millfield Street, and that facility is simply not capable of servicing, both in terms of coverage but also in terms of the level of service that people expect. As everybody knows, data is a very important part of the consumption of mobile services. Everybody has at least one device, and people using apps and all sorts of things, streaming, don't have landlines, use mobiles for access to mobile data as well. The area where it's located is it's clearly an appropriate zone, the mixed-use 1 zone. It's been cited amongst appropriate land uses. There's other land uses there that you might expect to see a mobile phone tower, such as auto repair, the storage units that are there, the bus depot, the fire station, etc. As set out in the officer's report, there's a buffer of about 70 metres from the nearest residence, which is on Railway Street, and it's well set back from all sensitive land uses and the main street. In terms of the EME issues which have been raised, the EME report that was provided with the documentation is a standard form report that all such facilities have prepared for them, and it's a very conservative report in terms of it predicts the maximum levels of EME as a percentage of the public safety standard. So, just 1 minute. As a percentage of the public safety standard. So, the numbers themselves are very small in terms of microwatts per square metre and all of those sorts of things. The simplest way to express it so that it's consistent across all carriers and all types of this sort of infrastructure is as a percentage of the standard, which is 100%, of course. And in this particular instance, it's about 1.82%. So we're talking around about 50 times below the level. And compliance with the standard is, which is not set by the carriers, it's set by the Commonwealth Government and administered by the ARPANSA, which is a Commonwealth agency. And it was most recently reviewed and updated in 2021 after several years of review of peer literature, etc. So everybody can have a lot of confidence that that standard, and it didn't change very much, there are a few tweaks. So it's been very consistent for about 20 years.
Just extension for time. Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Pesco. All in favour? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Please continue.
As the report states, the health-related impacts are adequately addressed in the application simply by proving that those levels are well within the standard. Once a facility, and this applies to any facility in Australia, of which there are about 25,000, there is a certification that needs to be independently verified, and it's also available on a public database as well. So any existing facility, there is a compliance certificate that's independently verified that any member of the public can access at any time. So it's very transparent in that respect. But in terms of compliance, that's been demonstrated, and that's all the carriers can do, is demonstrate that compliance and ensure they have systems in place to ensure that compliance continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bardi. Any questions, Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just one brief question on the safety standard. The 100%, I guess this one being at that lower percentage out of the 100%, can I just get clarification that if a site was, say, at 100% out of the 100%, that is still at that safety level? That 100% is still in a safe range, and it's why, I guess, any of these sort of fall within from the 100 all the way down to 0, that anywhere in that range is a safe operation?
So yes, anything up to 100%,
yep,
it meets the public safety standard. But it's not to say that if it's 100.1%, yep, that it is dangerous.
Yep.
There is a safety factor of about 50 times built in, and yep, that's where the 100% sits. So because that takes into account that there are people in the community who may be more sensitive to things, yep, such as people who are sick, children, pregnant women, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So the safety standard takes that into account as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So just to confirm, for the benefit of myself and anyone else watching tonight, the application's been assessed against the relevant legislation and regulations, so the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act and the regulation, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yep. Okay. And the standard that's judged against, that's the RPS S1?
RPS S1, that's yep, correct, yes.
So my understanding is that already incorporates basically a very conservative approach, and we're saying that we're 1.82% was the number?
Correct, yes. Yes, I was just saying that the 100% is set at a level well below where any effects have been observed, so there's that buffer already built in, and we're around 50 times below that. But it's also worth saying that that is when the facility is working at absolute maximum capacity, which happens very rarely. As you can imagine, demand fluctuates through the day at different times of the day and the week. So levels in reality are much lower. And in fact, the Australian Communications and Media Authority have undertaken real-world testing of hundreds and hundreds of sites across Australia, and they are, without exception, sometimes tens to hundreds of times below the predicted levels on those EMA reports.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions? Okay, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Bardi. Oh. Just making sure Councillor Jerd has declared the interest she's left. Okay, we'll now deal with PE 31/2025. Have someone to move. Councillor Mason, seconded. Councillor Hill. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a proposal that we defer the agenda item until next meeting. Now, Councillor Dixon's currently away on leave. She's back next meeting, and I'm proposing deferring the matter until she returns to enable her to speak on it. She was one of the councillors who called the DA up in the first place, so I think it's appropriate that we defer until she gets a chance to speak on it.
Councillor Hill, you seconded. You want to move the recommendation? or what, someone to move? Yeah, so have we got a seconder for Councillor Mason? It was with just Councillor Dixon, it was Councillor King that was also down, that pulled up the TA, is that correct? Okay. Okay. All right, so no one's to second that. Councillor Hill,
Is this
do you
just,
want to move the recommendation?
yes, so is Councillor Mason not moving the recommendation now, or? No seconder for the
He was going to
deferral?
defer, he was looking to second for
Okay. So
deferral.
we're just into debate now for the motion as it stands, is that correct?
If we need a seconder. Yep.
Okay,
So if you're
well,
moving
yes,
to...
I'm happy to move it, and if you're
Okay.
looking for a seconder.
Someone second, Councillor Lee.
Apologies.
Any discussion? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. ARPANS are the Australian agency responsible for protecting us from radiation and electromagnetic frequency risks, has an official position on this that reads, based on current research, there is no established scientific evidence to support exposure to the low-level radio frequency electromagnetic exposure from mobile phone base station antennas causes any health effects. But whilst they don't have any cause for concern, they also won't provide any safety guarantees. Most would agree that there are safe and unsafe levels of exposure to microwave radiation and EMFs, but where the disconnect is and what is an allowable and safe exposure level. And what has been set by ARPANSA, which is what the telcos currently operate by, is out of step with on-the-ground experience and with a growing body of independent studies which note that there is significant harm from these invisible and silent microwaves. These man-made, continuously pulsing devices are not the same as naturally occurring electromagnetic radiation. Over time, our bodies become progressively desensitized to exposure. The warning signals our bodies give us slowly fade away until they are no longer present. But the harmful health impacts persist despite their absence, and this dimming or fading is not to be confused with us adapting to external stresses. Do I expect to see ARPANSA to make a policy U-turn on this? I don't see it happening, as I think part of the problem is that the position has been arrived at least in part, as a defensive legal posture. Corporates routinely do that these days. No evidence of A being linked to B, but neither will we guarantee C. Agencies are then lobbied into a corner, and a carefully crafted legal statement results, which becomes their policy position. I don't expect this to change anytime soon, as we live in a litigious society. But it does put the onus on consumers and individuals to be more discerning about their own health outcomes. Perplexed people are left wondering how to reconcile their own undeniable experiences and physiological reactions which indicate oxidative stress with a watchdog who, for all practical purposes, denies any cause for concern. Some dismayed people understandably lay aside their own experiences and accept that they themselves must be wrong. Others have been down that path before and know that there is a great deal of value in gut feel, personal experience and general physiological sensitivity, and they can't dismiss their own concerns. Now, wireless technology has given us many benefits, but nobody can say it is safe. There are plenty of agencies and private interests claiming that there is no evidence of harm, but the burden of proof needs to rest on the telco industry to prove it is safe, rather than there is no current evidence of harm. This enables a continual turning away of evidence if it's not convenient. The sector has adopted this subtle nuance which shifts the burden of proof to the consumer, who is exposed to the downside risks rather than the sector which benefits from the upside. For the avoidance of doubt, I am absolutely for our community having acceptable phone coverage across the LGA to enable and facilitate connection, commerce and emergency services, but it is incumbent on the telcos and those other stakeholders involved in telecommunications infrastructure to deliver and facilitate this in a way that doesn't compromise human health. Big Tobacco had public agencies worldwide wrapped around their little finger for decades with the same line. No evidence of harm, but refusing to provide safety guarantees. They even pulled in one of the most trusted professions at that time, doctors, to convince the public that their brands were safe. More doctors smoked Camels than any other cigarettes. Smoking grew in popularity in the 1930s and 40s, and whilst public awareness of the health risks grew fairly quickly from the 1950s onwards, In New South Wales, it wasn't until 2001, 5 decades later, that public smoking bans were to be phased in. And it took a further 14 years after that to get to where we are today. Now, it's easy to see in hindsight, but difficult when you're in the middle of it. We're on a similar trajectory here with wireless technology. 3G was launched in 2001, 4G in 2009, 5G in 2019, and many may think that it's laughable to compare tobacco with phone towers, but I won't be waiting around for another 50 years for similar government recognition before acting here. I can't, in good conscience, support this DA application.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Now, Councillor Hill, just mindful that you've got a right of reply. Do you wish to use that, Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I would just like to speak briefly, I guess, on the issue of phone coverage. It was only a few months ago in this chamber that we had a number of mayoral minutes surrounding the topic of encouraging greater telephone communication and service coverage across our LGA, which was all unanimously supported by the councillors present at the meeting and endorsed thoroughly by yourself, Mayor Watton, and a number of other councillors in the room at the time. And now, a few months later, we see an application come forward to council, I guess, addressing that particular concern in one area of our LGA, and we're approaching it in perhaps a way that I didn't expect after our previous discussions here in the chamber. I don't personally work in the area of telecommunications, but my work within the technology sphere, in my professional world, I deal with a lot of other electromagnetic radiation technologies, with wireless technology, and for someone of my generation, I've spent a great deal of time across my whole life using a mobile device and using wireless technologies within my house for most of my life now. And only very recently, we had another tower like this installed within an area near Head and Greta, for the same reason that we argued previously at council that we needed greater telephone communication coverage in our LGA, and that was successfully installed and has been operating for some time now. And only this week we've seen the additional action within the main street, within the Curry CBD, of an additional phone tower going up to try to increase the service. Hearing from the speaker for this application in regards to the amount of safety and standards that are put in place and the additional safeguards even above and beyond the 100% standard for what is safe, being far below what any kind of indicated risk is something that I find quite relevant in this. And the planning guidelines and those standards put in place by the federal communications regulators is something that I think we should look to when making decisions on these matters as a planning body. I worry that a council veering into gut feeling about how individuals tend to see the response from something within the community, especially in something around health and technology, can be a dangerous slope towards decision making for an elected body on planning matters. We spend a lot of time in here discussing our concerns with planning legislation and guidelines, and how, as an elected body who makes planning decisions, we are bound to sort of consider all of those as valid planning reasons. And I myself, I don't believe will be making a decision on this judging off a gut feeling from something that is such a standard across our country. We noted 25,000 sites operating technology like this in the country. I think if we start to make decisions like that here in this chamber on gut feelings and discard the scientific evidence and the approved guidelines that have been tested and put in place to assist our decision making and planning on these matters, is a dangerous sort of area to be veering into.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. You referenced the mayoral minutes, and with relation to black spots across the LGA, we've got a large LGA. Hills, peaks, and valleys seems to be the major hindrance. So that was the main issue, and I guess most people, would state that they have phone reception in Cessnock. So I was advocating more so for the reaches of Colburn, Buckety, and also the funding behind that too, because it's pretty much, that was the second mayoral minute with relation to its funding. So just want to clarify that difference there. Well, finished debate, so we'll just put the matter forward now for a vote. The recommendation as written on the screen, those in favour? Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Madden, Palmowski, Pascoe and Hawkins. Those against? Councillor Mason and Watton. Matters carried. Yep. We'll just get Councillor Jerd back. Just one of the gallery to be respectful too, please. Okay, well, due to timeliness as we wait Councillor Jerd to return the seat. Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Moving on to englobo voting list. Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Lee, seconded. Councillor Palmowski, Councillor Lee.
Moving that having read and considered the reports in the agenda related to items CC 72 2025, CC 75 2025, CC 80 2025, CC 81 2025 and CC 83 2025, that Council adopt the recommendations as printed in the business papers for those items.
Any discussion? No discussion. All in favour? It's Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Madden, Mason, Palmowski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Oh, unanimous? Okay, unanimous. Okay, moving on to mayoral minutes. So I've got two mayoral minutes tonight, starting off with MM13. So this is with regards to a multi-government forum on homelessness, mental health and related social issues. I'm not sure, well, I'll read the recommendation first. So the recommendation as written is that Council writes to the member of Cessnock, Mr. Clayton Barr, MP, the member for Patterson, Mrs. Meryl Swanson, MP, and member for Hunter, Mr. Dan Rapicoli, MP, requesting the establishment of a Cessnock Regional Services Forum to address the shortage of support services for those who are less fortunate in our community. I'm not sure if councillors are aware of a document that is, or has been published. It's the New South Wales Homelessness Strategy. So it's a 10-year plan, 2025 to 2035. You don't have to go far into this actual strategy. Literally on page 4, there is a reference there, a table where it's talking about shifting the system from crisis focused to prevention, service-centred to person-centred, and then lastly, central delivery to local delivery. And that's the point that I really want to labour on here tonight, is the fact that we don't have enough services to meet the demand in our LGA currently. And in my opinion, who I've spoken to, all the service providers in our area, and as our LGA grows, we're going to need much more services. So that's with relation to homelessness. I'm not talking about, it doesn't touch on, there are secondary issues here, but alcohol and drug dependency, domestic and family violence, complex trauma and mental health challenges. We need these specialist services in our LGA, and it needs to be localised and it needs to be person-centred and Cessnock-centric. So I'll read it as written for accessibility purposes. So the report is, Cessnock City Council continues to witness increasing demand for community support services as population growth and socio-economic pressures intensify across the region. Local providers report escalating complexity in the cases they encounter, including what I just referenced, homelessness and housing insecurity, alcohol and drug dependency, domestic and family violence, complex trauma and mental health challenges. While a number of valued service providers currently operate within the Cessnock LGA, many are working beyond their capacity, facing limited resourcing, high referral volumes and insufficient access to specialist programs. It is evident that without greater interagency coordination, advocacy, existing efforts will not keep pace with community need. Council is asking the New South Wales Government, as the lead service provider, to establish a Cessnock Regional Services Forum that would discuss, provide an open forum for agencies, practitioners and government representatives to share local intelligence and identify service gaps, facilitate cross-sector collaboration and map overlapping areas of responsibility, establish a foundation for unified advocacy to state and federal governments on funding and infrastructure priorities, and to strengthen Council's understanding of how best to support existing service networks through planning, land use, community development functions. So I just want to make it also abundantly clear that Council, we can advocate for these needs. We have our priorities, we have our scope, for want of a better term, and that is what people mainly want to focus on with rates, roads and rubbish. In terms of housing, specialist services, this falls under the domain primarily of the state government. I would like to include writing to the federal members as well, for potential funding opportunities. But I just want to make it abundantly clear that, you know, we don't want to wipe our hands of this. We want to actively advocate on behalf of our community, being the closest level of government to our community. We're seeing this firsthand. We're right at the coalface, and I think this is an important thing to pursue. So, is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Palmuski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, while I respect your intent, I would like to point out that this mayoral minute reflects my own motion of urgency that was supported by yourself and fellow councillors back in May. There was a meeting held which I wasn't invited to because, in your own words, was organised quite quickly, but nothing further has occurred other than you to say that you met with our state member, that you meet with our state member regularly. My question is, could further meetings and the decision for a forum not have come from the initial meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pomorski, and definitely want to note your motion of urgency to bring everyone together. So the motion of urgency that you raised was to discuss with the local member and the federal member, and we did. The discussion for a forum did come up. It was getting bigger than Ben-Hur for council to even convene. We don't have the specialists in council staff, the skill sets, nor the funding, or the ability to convene such a thing. So therefore, it's putting it, you know, the onus back on state government, you know, to facilitate this forum. So it did come up in discussion. I definitely do note the fact that, you know, yourself in particular and other councillors wanted to be involved in that initial discussion. The scheduling issues, it's hard to get all the planets to align sometimes with federal, state, and also myself as well. But definitely want to note your motion of urgency. It did spark a good discussion. It is a relevant need, and it's something that I think we need to make sure, and through endorsement of council, that we do have a forum, but also communicate the fact that we can't convene this. It is beyond the scope of council.
So what did come out of the initial meeting, and could we have not organised more meetings from that initially? I
think, you know, yeah, good question. So with regards to ongoing meetings, I think this comes down to the fact of resourcing and specialty. It does fall under New South Wales Government. Did have several conversations with the state member, Clayton Barr. He actually helped me put this together initially, but they really need to drive this matter. It's for council to be involved at this level to organise a forum. It's beyond the scope.
All right, I won't ask more about that. So I know we've spoken previously, but just going back to the initial meeting, so did we get anywhere in identifying the current population of those sleeping rough, and if the statistics is growing or remains consistent, and what support services we actually have in the area, and if they are indeed under pressure with lack of funding, resources and volunteers, just to allow a smoother, more coordinated approach to supporting our homeless population? Was any of that identified in that initial meeting, or have it looked at before the forum?
No, it was
before
discussed.
the mayoral minute?
Yeah, no, thank you. No, it was definitely, it was discussed, but no hard stats. So we had the MPs come together. The stats that were made readily available, so 200 people approximately, sleeping rough. But then there's the ongoing conversation that I've had with other key stakeholders, and I know probably yourself as well have had conversations with many key stakeholders in our region with regards to even domestic violence and youth homelessness. Those numbers aren't accounted for. So basically, it's a matter of them pulling their resources together, forum state, and working with the providers that they effectively provide funding for. For council's involvement at this point is just really, it's ineffectual.
Right. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Generally behind the intent, certainly in the concept, although it does come across very broad, I'd just be slightly concerned we may be trying to bite off more than we can chew, but I hope that's not the case. A couple of questions, though, just for my understanding. Mr Mayor, in your preparation and sort of your research putting this together, I'm assuming you've got some data around things like waitlist times and how they've blown out, presumably, say, over the last 12 months for these services. Are you able to share some of that data with us? Or
It's identified, this is the fact that, again, not a specialist in this area, but identified need and talk to providers that are strapped. So basic, stats at this point, that would lie with state government where it should lie, and hence the need that, after speaking to our MPs, they've vouched for the fact that they are low on resource, even speaking directly about Department of Communities and Justice, they need more resourcing. But this is for them to convene, collaborate, work a forum, work collectively with our providers in the area that have said funding, because council doesn't fund any of these providers.
yeah, understanding.
Nor doesn't have the state's stats available per se.
Yeah, so we don't have any statistics behind it. I'm a numbers man. I like stats. That's all.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to quantify.
Well, your state MP and federal MP would have them. That's why they need to convene the forum.
So speaking of state MP, as I spoke to you about before the meeting, Mr Mayor, we've got a mayoral minute here again that only asks that we're writing to one of the three state MPs that cover our LGA. Are you happy to include the member for Maitland and member for Upper Hunter? I think there's some alternate wording up there from the minute taker.
Yep, no, happy to adopt that.
Yep, thank you for that. It sounds as though my other question will be similar, that you don't maybe not have the numbers available to you right now. So perhaps anything you do have, you might be able to share with us as well. But just one last question there. It's reading that we're going to establish a Cessnock Regional Services Forum, or requesting the establishment of. Who exactly are we requesting that? Because it's going to go to 5 different people now. Who exactly has that action item on there? Because I don't think that's clear.
Well, that's a matter really for them to work out who actually steers it. But as the lead, the leader in this area, the state government, I would suggest that the state members would drive it alongside the ministers. But yeah, to have them all collaboratively work together to pull the resources.
Okay, so when we say requesting the establishment of, we're just requesting that the New South Wales state government in general.
That's for them to determine. I prefer that they get together and work out the nuts and bolts of everything. Right. I'm just advocating for our community that there's an identified need. We're
happy to advocate and hope that, or hopefully the state set it up and continue to involve us, which would be great.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Jared.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. So I hear, this is sort of my understanding of what you sort of went on about, but I hear you saying it was quickly done with the first meeting, so councillors missed out, and it was worked out that council don't have the specialist staff or funding for it to continue that way. So you're taking Councillor Palmosky, did I say it right? Yeah. I've always said I don't want to say your name out loud, idea and putting it onto state. Is that correct? That's my understanding of what you're trying to do. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
Yeah, so you've taken her idea, knowing that it might not continue to work that way because of funding, and we're going to switch it around and make it still possible.
I guess you could say part 2. So what came up from that conversation, as mentioned, discussion with Councillor Pomolsky, was the idea of a forum. But for council, again, back to your point, we can't convene such a thing. We don't have the staffing specialists. We don't have the resource on any level to convene this, and it needs to be state and federal.
Well, we've been pushing for state to step up a bit more, so this is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any further discussion? Councillor Hawkins?
Mr. Mayor. Look, just briefly, I'm wondering if we perhaps, where it says address the shortage of support services, could we perhaps change that to address the provision of support services? I just wonder, maybe the argument could get bogged down. Is there a shortage? Isn't there a shortage? Is it an acceptable wait time? Is it a blowout? I'm not really interested in the blame game of shortage. We'd love more. Everybody would love more. I think we should be more interested in the provision of the services that we've already got, making sure we can connect the people that need that service to the people that are providing that service, and that my understanding is that within that industry that they're quite well connected, and the agencies and the community organisations do work well together. I think the promotion of that and our facilitation of it. So I would just ask perhaps we could take shortage out so that we don't get sidetracked into a numbers game, and if you're giving us more of what we aren't using, then it really seems sort of pointless.
No, sure. No, I definitely note that. That's reasonable. I guess the speaking with providers in the area, well, not guess is the wrong word there. If we're talking meaning of words, speaking with providers on the ground that have had their federal funding cut. For example, Samaritans in the area providing services to the community for 40 plus years. The funding's cut. The Curry Community Centre offering Aboriginal case worker provision and services, their funding's been cut. So when our area is growing at such a fast rate and these needs will inevitably increase, we need to see an increase in services, not a decrease. But definitely note that, and I'm happy to adopt that into the mayoral minute because I don't want to get stuck in semantics. And
the word shortage to provision of support service.
Sure. Service provision. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
No, provision's fine. Yeah, thank you. Any further discussion? No further discussion? Okay. Put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Okay. Moving on to the second mayoral minutes. So MM14/2025. I'll read the recommendation as written. So the council provides a submission to the House of Representatives, Standing Committee, Regional Development, Infrastructure and Transport in regards to the committee's new inquiry into local government funding and financial sustainability as it affects Cessnock City Council by 3rd of February and 2026. And what better time than now to actually raise this? There is a lot of lobbying going on right now, particularly with Country Mayors Association, Local Government New South Wales. You take into consideration the financial assistance grant from Commonwealth funding from the federal government dropped in half in the 90s. So it used to be 1% of Commonwealth funding, now it's down to 0.5. It doesn't take a rocket scientist based on that alone that costs have increased since the 90s, yet we're still stuck at the 0.5%. So, you know, I've got our CFO sitting next to us where most things are budgeted and accounted for with CPI. We're definitely under PPI, what things actually cost and how it matters. If that, just hypothetically, if that financial assistance grant was restored back to 1%, we'd be looking at an additional $8 to $9 million on council's bottom line, which is nothing to sneeze at all. However, I will read the proposal as written for accessibility. So, council's long-term financial plan, the LTFP, indicates multiple years of ongoing operating deficits when capital grants and contributions are excluded, which we just heard from the audit before, Alex. So our community strategic plan paints a picture of optimism for the future while recognising the challenges we face as a growing community. As a council, we have been open and transparent about budgetary challenges we are facing in this local government area. Future funding obligations have been consistently included as a specific risk in every operational plan for the past 2 terms of council. These budget challenges are largely due to factors such as a rapidly growing population, an ageing and growing asset base, cost shifting by successive state governments, and increases to costs and materials outpacing allowable rate increases capped by the state government. Many of these problems are not unique to our council and are faced by numerous other councils. You just need to review the IPART website for information on that. That the rate peg is not a great model in my opinion. An independent financial sustainability review into our financial health by the University of Newcastle confirmed that rising costs and decades of underfunding have placed pressure on council's ability to deliver services and maintain infrastructure. The financial sustainability review recommended additional revenue to maintain existing services and fix critical infrastructure gaps. Now, there are some enclosures there. So a letter from myself writing to the House of Representatives Standing Committee, the Regional Development, Infrastructure and Transport Committee. So they're in the enclosures in the reports. And then a response back from said committee from from the chair of the committee, Mrs. Fiona Phillips, the MP, did receive the letter, and she invited council to make a submission by Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026. So tonight's basically raising awareness of that. It's no better time. We're about to go into our community consultation sessions this weekend to discuss financial sustainability for our council. And we have our robust long-term financial plan that I believe will be considered. It's going out for exhibition. We voted through in englobo, and we'll come back to council for endorsement. And from what I hear from the experts working on that, it'll be the most robust long-term financial plan out of all the councils in New South Wales. And I take Dr. Joseph Drew's word for that because he is an expert in this field. So I'd like to put this matter forward for a vote and gain the support of councillors concerning this. Is there any discussion? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I did brief you just shortly before the council meeting started, but I would like to possibly add just an additional dot point to your motion to ensure that if council is to make a submission to this committee, that the council provides a copy of the submission to both the federal member for Hunter, Dan Robert-Coley, and the federal member for Patterson, Ms. Merrill Swanson. If you'd be happy to accept that amendment.
Yes, happy to add that. Excellent,
thank you. And then just to speak briefly on the resolution or the motion itself, I think that it's a great sort of position for us to be taking a forward step in providing information to the standing committee, as a lot of, perhaps a lot of residents, somewhat like myself on some issues, aren't really aware of a lot of the federal government committees and the inquiries that are undertaken sort of day to day. You know, we have so many that happen in any term of the federal parliament, and it's fantastic that that council's keeping our eye on this and sort of has jumped on as soon as it's come up. I note the inquiry was only forwarded to the committee and announced on the 6th of November, so it's great that we're sort of on the ball here. Just one note that's sort of come to my mind in addressing the previous mayoral minute and now this one here. I note that the original letter that you wrote to the committee, just coming from the office of the mayor yourself, which is something that you're completely capable of doing in your role. I did note that, as far as I'm aware, councillors were not sort of copied in or notified of that letter being sent, and I don't know if any other councillors experienced the same sort of awkwardness, but I did get a question or two specifically from the officers of the federal members who saw the letter come through, but even as a councillor, I was unaware that you as the mayor had forwarded this letter on to the committee. So I guess I would just ask that if you're looking to do that and it's a matter that you believe is sort of for the benefit of the full council, if councillors could be copied into future correspondence just so we're aware it's happening. So if we're sort of approached by it, the community or our elected representatives on the matter, we're sort of aware of what it is that you've been doing sort of as in your role as mayor on those issues. And also just for transparency sort of sake, I guess in this instance, you took the initiative to write to the committee in this instance without sort of coming to council for it, which, as I said before, it's a completely suitable capability you have as the mayor. Yet the previous mayoral minute appears to be a motion again for council to vote to for us to write to the MPs for the formation of a forum after we've previously already sat down for a meeting that councillors have endorsed a motion for from this council. I feel like sometimes in some issues we're getting the full decision of council for your council to write away for something, and in other issues where sort of it's just being done, I guess, from your prerogative as the mayor. I'm happy to have all of this correspondence going out from council in one form or the other. If we've got some consistency across the board so that everything is open and transparent and all councils are kept in the loop.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hill. Just to respond to that. So, yes, in my day-to-day job, I'm advocating every day, so whether that's face-to-face, and I do try and log those monthly through councillor reports from what I can log, there are private, conversations and things that I deal with residents that need to be of a private nature, and I can't advertise those as such. However, before making a submission, that's one thing that I actually wanted to do, and I guess that's the key term of submission here, that I want to get council's endorsement and backing and awareness too. As we know, you've got to act quickly in these things. You just mentioned yourself that it's hard to keep on top of all the committees that are out there, all the standing committees. So to make sure that we strike while the iron's hot, particularly with time's of the essence, particularly with where we're sitting as a council financially. So to wait for a council meeting, you certainly don't want to call an extraordinary meeting to, go through all the ins and outs and all the throes of communication I might be attempting to send or not send. But before we make any submission, I thought it'd be definitely to get council's endorsement as a whole, or at least majority, to make that formal submission. But yeah, no, thank you. I note your comment, Councillor Hill. Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sitting here quite confused because not so long ago you had a mayoral minute, right? And it was argued that why are we wasting time to bring it to the council chambers, as it was seen as fluffing. What was it? What was the words? I can't remember exactly the words, but if everybody goes back, they can see who I'm talking about. And fluffing and wasting our time, and then tonight you bring it to council and there's an issue with bringing it to council. So I just don't know what everybody in this room wants, either Dan to just, or the mayor to do it behind the scenes, or bring it to council when he can, or what, because I'm just so goddamn confused sitting here where you're trying to do the right thing and keep everyone in the loop, you get in trouble. You try and do anything when you can, you get in trouble. What does everybody want? Transparency, and he's trying to be as transparent as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. No motions of urgency. I haven't seen any motions of urgency come through. Now moving on to general items to be discussed. So officers' report. So report number GMU4/2025. This is the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee Annual Report 24/25. Someone to move that. Councillor Jerd, seconded Councillor Lee. Any discussion? No discussion. Put forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Madden, Mason, Pomelski, Pascoe, Watton. Those against? Councillor Jerd, sorry, Councillor Hawkins, were you're in favour? Okay. So those against, Councillor Jerd. Matters carried. Moving on to report GMU5/2025. It's the Internal Audit Charter. Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Pascoe, seconded Councillor Hill. Any discussion? No discussion. Put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Sorry, Councillor Judge. Yep. So it's unanimous. Now moving on to report PE 32/2025. This is to do with the land dedication planning agreement of works in kind policies. Okay. Could someone to move that, please? Councillor Jerd, seconded Councillor Hill. Any discussion? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I just wanted to speak briefly sort of on some positives within these policies that we're voting on here to put out on public exhibition. It's fantastic to see some sort of more strict and, I guess, firm guidelines in place, especially for stuff around our land dedication policy and the draft works in kind agreement policy. The land dedication policy, I think, is something that, without having a solid framework in place, our councillors, I guess, sort of suffered somewhat at the whims of some developers across previous years. The dedication of land often sees in some planning agreements that council becomes the beneficiary, if that is the appropriate word, of some less than desirable land in certain planning agreement outcomes. In one of the ones that comes to mind, I think for me personally, is in Cliffley. There's a section of land that was dedicated to council as a part of that planning agreement, but it is very low lying and suffers from being quite flood affected. And so while the land dedication was, I guess, on the books a net positive to council, in that we now have an additional bit of open space that is available to the community, the costs to us to maintain and to service that in its current location have really sort of put a burden on us financially into the future. And having this land dedication policy in place to ensure that the community as a whole is able to accept appropriate land dedication from any future planning agreements, I think will benefit us in the long term, ensuring that the land that, if any, is dedicated to us in any future agreements best suits the needs of the community and is able to be maintained affordably by council and suitably by council into the future. I think also the works in kind policy helps to allow council to have a large amount of, to have some amount of the works within our contribution plan schedules taken up as a part of any voluntary planning agreements with developers, to ensure that those perhaps that are more suited at the time of development to deliver those works are able to do so to the benefit of council and to the community as a whole.
Councillor Hill, Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to know, I've got a couple of questions. So, removal of the requirement for tendering, I just want to know why.
From what I understand, I might put this through to the General Manager to delegate.
Yeah, if I can just ask the Manager of Strategic Planning, Mr. Mayor.
Could you just repeat the question?
Page 43, they removed the requirement for tendering. So I'm just concerned, oh my God, sorry. Just wanted to know why.
I believe that is to do with the beneficiary of the planning agreement is the developer. So there's no other party that can tender for the works because the arrangement is between council and the developer.
Okay. Yeah, so it just sort of makes it more clean because they can't get anybody else, basically, is what you're saying? Yeah, sorry. Okay, the other question I've just got is just more of a clarification, because we're being told before that I'm going to flick back to Wallenby Road, because when we had that intersection that was happening near Lochinvar Street, we were told, we had a vote on that, refresh my memory, vote on that about taking on the works because it was going to be cheaper for council to do it. But yet when I read this report, it says that it would be cheaper if the developer does it rather than council. Do you want me to read?
No, just where in the report you're referencing there. And
to be honest, I didn't write down and I didn't bring my paperwork, but in the report it says that it's usually cheaper if the developer does it and we do the in-kind support. Yet when we had the Wallenby Road intersection, it was argued that it would be cheaper for us to do the intersection, and we were going to get paid about like 2 years later. Can you remember that?
yeah, I think I've got the right person to speak to now, so I'll put it through to the Director of Works.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jerd. What I understand is that you're clarifying whether the works would have been cheaper for the developer to undertake as opposed to council. In isolation, it perhaps would have been. It hasn't gone down that pathway. The reason for council to negotiate the voluntary planning agreement with the developer was because council was undertaking works for stage 1 of Wallenby Road, and to include that works into the council works was much more economical and efficient than for the developer to actually wait until that works was done and do it in isolation.
Yeah, yes, no, I do remember you sort of saying that. It was just quite confusing, because in one sentence we're getting told, it's cheaper if the developer does it, and then this report was saying the opposite, and it was like, it's double speak, Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to report CC 71/2025, the Community Sporting and Environment Grant through 25 to 26. Councillor Madden and Councillor Palmowski, thank you. Just wait for them to exit. So before we enter discussion, they've left, just need a mover and seconder. So we've just got the button pressed there first. So Councillor Jerd moving, seconded Councillor Lee. Speaking, Councillor Jerd.
Oh, I was not expecting to go first. Anyway, so I emailed council about this report, just because previously I have been told when it comes to grants, you know, some grants they can't reapply the following year, and I was just trying to get clarification, because when I went through the list of people there, we're trying to get $9,000 from another part to put it over to actually pay all those grants out, which I can understand that. But when we have been told previously that, you know, not every grant they can apply every year. There's some on there that got like $8,000, nearly $8,000 last year, and now they're applying for $3,000 this year. So I just want to make it sure it's fair, that we're not always giving it to the same people. Some of them might deserve it and might need it, but just want to make sure that what I've been previously told, that you can't always apply and get a grant every year.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jerd. My understanding is they have to go through the same application process, and it's open exhibition, but just to clarify, put it through to Director, the Corporate Community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Generally, as long as past year's applicants have completed their acquittals from the previous year, so they've said where they've actually spent all the money, then they're welcome to apply again, and then they're assessed against everybody within the guidelines. Likewise, my understanding is the only real difference is in the schools area, where they try to share it among schools more often, so every school's get a fair go. It also relies on how many people actually apply, and they will rank it based on that. But the guidelines in the charter are quite clear on how people can apply and the rankings that they have within that.
Is the Heritage Fund one also? Because I know previously a resident had applied for a Heritage one, got denied, couldn't apply again the next.
I would have to take that on notice and get back to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I just wanted to make some comment on the fact that it appears as though there's a number of groups that have been successful in getting grant funding this year around that I've not seen on our grant schemes previously, which is great to see that additional groups are making submissions and have been successful in getting it. I also think that it's a great little view into sort of the different aspects of our community, looking at this resolution and the variety of grant schemes and groups and committees and local charities and things like that that are getting money from us. The section at the top sort of having a large representation of our council section 355 committees, which are oftentimes council community buildings and halls and facilities that are managed by volunteers, and it's fantastic to see council still supporting those endeavours through these schemes. Additionally, to see the sporting facilities grant scheme coming through with some groups that I've also not seen previously. It's great to see some diversity within that area, and a decent spread across the LGA as well. And I think perhaps with a lot of discussion around the social services and needs of those in our community at this time, it's fantastic to see on dot point 4 a large number of groups who have been successful under the Community and Cultural Development Grant Scheme, many of which appear to be groups that provide very important and needed support services to our community across the LGA. So I commend sort of the staff's work in getting these applications together and working through the approvals, and I also commend the many groups in our community who have put the work in to make these applications, and so I'm very pleased to put support behind adopting this recommendation.
Councillor Jerd, your question?
I've got a question about the $9,000 of the unspent funds from the sporting facility. Is that from this current, like, that would be just the money for this, like, current budget? Is that correct?
To Director?
Yes, that's correct. We're only talking about this year's budget.
So when does that finish again? Like, it's
30 June.
3rd of June next year?
30 June next year. Yep.
Yeah, rightio. Okay, so if we didn't like allow that to go to these grants tonight, would there be potential to be able to spend it from now to then on other options?
In terms of for these grants, like for other grants or for other purposes in council?
Well, that money sitting there, is it they have to apply for a grant, so that probably would rule them out for now till that time. Is that right?
No, the funds are still available if the teams want to go for a second round of grants, they could do that because the funding's there, approved in the operational plan. If they don't use it, it would go into the Consolidated Revenue of Council by 30 June.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm not I'm just not real. Don't really want to take that away because I know there's a lot of sporting facilities that have asked for funding.
Yeah. So this doesn't take it away. It just, the money is just unspent at the moment. It's noting that there is the capacity there within the teams to actually, because they have that funding to go for another grant round.
So can I ask you like a hypothetical sort of question, right? I think I've put it into council before about, for example, the football field at Cessnock, and about trying to get line marking on the side of the road for there. Would that fall into that category of money?
For the side of the road?
Yeah.
Unlikely, no. That's an infrastructure requirement, not under the guidelines for these grants.
So then there was another email that went around about putting up footy posts at Curry. Would that fall into that $9,000 there?
I'm uncertain. I'd have to check the guidelines.
Yeah.
Again, I'm happy to take that on notice and get back to you, but I'd have to check the guidelines to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Could just get someone to go retrieve Councillor, two councillors. Thank you. Oh. Okay, thank you. Now moving on to report CC 73/2025, it's the classification of land, lot 6 and 7. So it's to do with 1 Chapel Street and 1 Bendeich Drive in North Rothbury. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Pascoe. Any discussion? Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just a question, perhaps for the Director, Corporate and Community Services. On the block that these two lots fall within, it appears as though there's a residential property sort of adjacent to them. Is there could I get clarification, is that property a part of sort of the wider development, or is that property sort of separate from the whole development within this area? It appears to be like an existing residential property that was perhaps not subdivided like for the large development, and it sort of backs onto these two lots. And I was curious as to whether or not there was plans within the development, or maybe perhaps it's a planning question, my apologies, as to whether that lot is just a sort of standard, will remain in its current state, or whether it will be subdivided into additional lots in this area.
Through to the Director.
I feel like I'm taking everything on notice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about
no,
that.
my apologies for
I
not
am happy to
providing the
take that
question
on
beforehand.
notice. I've only really been looking at these two lots as it relates to the drainage.
Yeah, excellent. No worries. Thank you for that.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? No, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Now moving on to report CC 74/2025. It's the adoption of the revised code of meeting practice. It's come back off exhibition. Could I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Jerd, seconded. Councillor Pascoe. Discussion. Councillor Jerd.
Was there any changes that happened to the code of meeting, like with it being out on expedition? Sorry, my brain's a bit fried. I've been.
My understanding was there was no submissions made whatsoever.
So no changes. So it's still the.
There's no change, nil change.
So it's still the because I mean we've currently got some councillors out, so it's still only 3 live feed. Is that?
AV links per calendar year. Yes.
Yeah, so 3 per year. Okay, rightio. All right. I just wanted to make sure that was onto that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jerd. Councillor Madden.
Thanks, Mayor Watton. Yeah, I've been quite vocal on this topic. First of all, I'd like to thank the council staff for actually making the code of meeting practice more workable than what the Minister first put out. I find it very difficult to agree with it. We are all elected officials in here under the understanding that this was the code of meeting practice for the 4 years. And I really hope the Minister's sitting home with his pyjamas on watching this live stream that he's really going to affect people's livelihoods, not only in this council, but in other councils throughout New South Wales, especially the farmers in remote areas that might zoom in. So unfortunately, yeah, I can't agree with it, but thanks to the council staff for actually trying to make it more workable and such.
Thank you, Councillor Madden. I'm sure the Minister is watching Cessnock City Council meeting, as he would tune in every third Wednesday. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I think I'd probably, echo Councillor Madden's sentiments in regards to my frustration with the timing of this. I can definitely support certain aspects of the changes that the Minister has brought in, and perhaps it would be more suitable even if there were to be restrictions in the way in which people could attend, whether I would agree with them or not. I still think that it's a little inconsiderate that this is being brought in during a council term in this way that will affect so many sitting councillors. I would perhaps like to move an additional dot point to amend the recommendation if possible. I apologise, I haven't provided it in writing beforehand, but if the council would be looking to support this, that we make a dot point 5 that council express their concern with the timing of the implementation of this of these changes and the impact that this may have on sitting elected members. Just because I feel as though, yes, a lot of us have spoken sort of to express our frustration, but I think that just sort of having it codified in the resolution would really, we may agree with certain parts here and there in the code of meeting practice, but I think we can all agree that bringing something like this in the middle of a council term is a little frustrating for all of us across the state.
So just to clarify, you're putting forward an amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would need to second that before we go forward. Do you have the wording that you can read out, or we're going to go verbatim?
No, I'll try to keep it as simple as possible if I can. Sorry?
Yep.
I'm happy to sort the wording out and then councillors can decide if they'd like to take it on board, if that's fair.
Sure.
That council note our dissatisfaction with the timing of these new Code of Meeting Practice standards and the effect this may have, and the effect this may have on sitting elected members during this term of council. Thank you. And so if the mover and seconder are happy to accept that as a dot point 5.
So come down to Councillor Jerd and Pascoe. Sure.
Just because of what Councillor Hill said, I just want to just check, do you think it's going to affect our sitting council if this gets adopted?
Me? There may be instances across the council term where I may have utilised provisions within the previous code of meeting practice that I may not be able to, and I think that a number of councillors may be affected by it, and I've spoken to some of the councillors in this chamber who may find it to be on negative impact on them, and from discussion I've seen across the local government sector so far in the media and through other discussions, there's a number of individuals that I understand will be affected, especially, as Councillor Madden said, especially out in the west, where a lot of individuals live hours away from the council chamber and have been able to utilise a remote access. I think it definitely will have some effect across the board on councillors, not just in our council.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's before by-elections. When's that again, I think? Anyway, I will take it on board. I'm just a little bit conflicted with the new because some of the things are new, but then when it comes to the live footage, pre-COVID, it didn't exist to be able to live feed in. So I'll take it on board, but I just want that noted that that's not necessarily a new ruling. It was existing previously.
Okay, so we're the mover and seconder are happy to adopt. We'll put that forward for a vote. Or is there any further discussion? No? Okay, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Hill, Jerd, Lee, Mason, Pamalski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Madden. Okay, moving on to report CC 76/2025. It's the annual report for 24-25. Someone to move that? Anyone to move? Councillor Lee. Seconded. Any report? Councillor Pascoe. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Madden, Mason, Pamalski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Jerd. Now moving on to report CC 77/2025. So I should note that carried. CC 76. CC 77/2025. This is the September 25 review of the 25 to 29 delivery program. Can I have someone to move that? Please, Councillor Jerd, seconded Councillor Lee. Speaking, Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got a question. So in the paperwork, it says the construction of Sawyers Gully Road. I know it says that like one section is complete, we've still got to do another section. When they do the other section closer down to Frame Drive intersection, will they then go over the whole road with another lot of tar? So it's resealed or hot mixed the whole section? Or is that completed what they have on that corner of Sawyers Gully Road at the moment?
Put that through to the Director of Works.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jerd. The section they're currently working on is stage 1. Stage 2 is the next section which goes through to Frame Drive, and it will include the intersection when it's underway.
So I think what I mean by that is when they do the next bit of section of road, right? Once that's completed, will they go over the whole lot with just a little bit of tar, a bit more?
Are you talking about the current seal that's on stage 1?
So
That's the final seal, so it's a...
It's final seal.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, when I drive on it, I don't know if it's going to be long before there's going to be potholes in it, which is something that just frustrates every person out there, that we spend all this money to actually fix a road. And look, they've done a great job, but I just don't think that the tar's going to last very long, because it wasn't that long ago, I think I was talking to you about Lovedale Road, where we did patches and it was very similar, and they got massive potholes within weeks. So I just not not real happy from a resident perspective with our ratepayers that we're not actually doing a better, in my opinion, a better seal. So, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. Okay, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Madden, Mason, Pamalski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Jerd. The matter's carried. Now I'll now deal with report CC 78/2025. This is the quarterly budget review statement for quarter 1, 30th of September 2025. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Jerd, seconded. Councillor Pascoe. Is there any discussion? Okay, well, if there's no discussion, I might ask a couple of questions. So just the question for the CFO slash Director of Corporate Community. We're a couple of hats tonight. Obviously, we're in the midst of a lot of discussion about our finances in the community. I just want to confirm that, can you confirm that the proposed need for a special variation is not driven by the current scope of works or any single project, but instead by long-term structural issues?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm it's long-term structural issues. Sorry, it's primarily brought about from close to 20 years of since we last did a special variation. In that time, we have, as much as possible, cut our costs to live within the rate peg from that period onwards. Post COVID, essentially, and the lockdowns, when we've gone into a higher inflation environment, and coupled with the growing infrastructure requirements for a fast-growing city, we have now been doing more and more infrastructure over the last 5 years, and that has also coupled to it. So it's not driven by any one particular project or scopes of works. It's kind of a myriad of three things that have built on top of us over 20 years.
Okay, thank you for that. And just with regards to depreciation, I asked about our auditor before about the definition in layman's terms of what depreciation actually means. But can you just speak to how much does depreciation, how much does it actually contribute to the challenge council faces meeting the operating performance ratio?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And can I say that the auditor probably explained depreciation better than I've actually had it taught to me at uni, so that I'll give him kudos for that. I don't usually give the auditors positives. So depreciation is a key challenge that all local governments face, us in particular. So we have close to, I think it's $1.6 billion worth of fixed assets now that probably don't fit the definition of assets in any other business. We can't really sell them. We can't do anything with them. They're just sitting there to be maintained, depreciated, and then renewed into the future. What that really means that is over the maximum time of 120 years, $1.6 billion is going to be written off. The other part of that is that we are required to carry those assets at replacement value. And so as opposed to most businesses, and particularly for those who may be doing tax effect accounting, and good on to you guys that can do that, we don't get the opportunity just to keep it at cost and then write it off over 20 years. So we actually have to increase it if inflation's gone up by 8% in that area, and then we have to increase our assets by the same figure. And what that means is that each year depreciation will go up higher than our rate peg, and it just contributes more and more and more to the ability for us both to renew our assets with the sufficient cash that we have, but also to be able to run at a surplus, which is at this moment in time structurally impossible.
I guess you'd be happy to receive more money from the state and federal government, particularly federal government, should they review the financial assistance grants?
The financial assistance grant would be very, very helpful, but it's probably only a third of the way of what we need. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion? I would now put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to report CC 82/2025, the resolutions tracking report. Anyone to move that report? Councillor Pascoe, second Councillor Hill. Any discussion? Happy for you to take this on notice. I just thought I might ask this right now in open council. So sorry, Director. Just can you give a brief update on Brankston Greta Cycleway, where things are up to concerning that? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the Brankston to Greta Cycleway is awaiting a response from the federal government grants, the Safer Local Roads and Infrastructure grant that we applied for back in August of this year. That notification should be imminent. We're still waiting from acknowledgement from the federal government at this point, but once we do, we can then push forward with the final stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for taking that on short notice. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. We'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to report WI 12/2025, the adoption of the draft waste management policy. Someone to move that to come back off exhibition. Councillor Lee, seconded. Councillor Hawkins. Any further discussion? No further discussion. We'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Report WI 13/2025. This is the minutes of the Floodplain Risk Management Advisory Committee, the meeting held on the 11th of September 2025. Someone to move that. Councillor Lee, seconded. Councillor Pascoe. Speaking, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a councillor representative on the Floodplain Risk Management Committee, I just feel compelled to highlight the concerns of our community representatives. So for those that don't know, it's a committee made up with yourself as the chair, Mr. Mayor, one councillor representative, which is currently myself, council staff, community representatives, and also combat agencies like the SES. Relating to item in those minutes FLOCLM 10/2025, our community reps highlighted in the meeting that it was concerned with the prioritisation given to the recommended control measures coming from the Greta Floodplain Risk Management Study and Plan. And I believe it's a justified concern and shared that with him. They don't appear to be in an actual order of prioritisation, but perhaps an order of funding, which may be easier to achieve and knock some off the list first. So whilst I do tend to share those concerns, and I just wanted it noted on his behalf that he has highlighted those concerns and highlighted them since the meeting as well, as you would have seen, Mr. Mayor, through correspondence around the minutes. I will still be supporting the endorsement of the minutes this evening, as they do reflect the true and accurate record of the meeting on 11 September.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Any discussion? No further discussion. Put this forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Now moving on to report BN 17/2025. This is to do with the transfer of regional roads to state government ownership. Moving Councillor Lee, some to second. Councillor Pomelski. Speaking, Councillor Lee.
Forgot I was going to be reading this out when I wrote this much. So moving that Council 1 notes that Buchanan Road is currently classified as a regional road managed by Cessnock City Council / Maitland City Council, which now carries significantly increased volumes of heavy and emergency vehicles, as it forms a critical connector between the Hunter Expressway and Maitland Hospital, as well as surrounding industrial and residential growth areas. 2 notes that the continuous route of Hart Road, Gingers Lane, Frame Drive and Orange Street is currently classified as a regional road managed by Cessnock City Council, which now carries significantly increased volumes of commuter and freight traffic, as it provides a key connection between the Hunter Expressway and Cessnock via Cessnock Road at Abermain. 3 notes that the former New South Wales Liberal National Government made a commitment in 2019 to transfer up to 15,000 kilometres of regional roads, including Buchanan Road, to state ownership, but failed to deliver on this commitment, with 0 kilometres transferred by the change of government in 2023. 4 recognises that the management of these roads by council imposes unsustainable financial maintenance and safety burden on Cessnock City Council and local ratepayers. And 5, writes to the New South Wales Minister for Roads and Minister for Regional Transport and the Minister for Local Government, seeking A, the immediate reassessment of these roads for reclassification to state road status under the Transport for New South Wales Road Recategorisation Framework announced in August 2025, and B, a commitment that the New South Wales Government assume ongoing maintenance and renewal responsibility for these critical connector routes, and 6, provides a copy of this resolution to the member for Cessnock and the member for Maitland to seek their support.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I'd just like to speak briefly in support of the notice of motion from Councillor Lee. Noting that one of the roads mentioned there falls within Ward D, down there at my end of the LGA, and I've had a bit of discussion with Councillor Lee in the lead up to the meeting around sort of my support for his motion, and especially that road in particular. I think residents might recall back to the most recent time. Luckily, it was for a very short period, the last flooding of Testus Hollow, but the period before that, before the road upgrades were completed, when Gilliston became an island, that route from sort of Curry, Head and Greta into Maitland was completely blocked off, and it poses a great risk, I believe, for anyone trying to access the hospital, especially the new Maitland Hospital, in any instance where other roads are unavailable or traffic accidents occur, when emergency traffic has to utilise Buchanan Road, a road that has very little space for anyone to pass in any section of the road. And not only that, but as Councillor Lee has stated, it's become basically a brand new connector for the people in new developments in East Maitland to access the Hunter Expressway, and it's our council and our ratepayers that are footing the bill for that new sort of critical transport link. So I think across our LGA, I think it probably ranks as our highest priority in terms of one road that we would like to see taken on by the state government. I would note that there's been some discussion from the Hunter Joint Organisation recently around council's preference for roads to be taken on by the state government. I'm not fully aware. I believe that information sort of that they made public sort of come from within council and council staff's recommendations of roads that would meet the current criteria under the road recategorisation framework. But I think it's important for us as a council to endorse a type of priority for these roads that we would like to see taken on board. In our catch up with the Minister Atchison here in Council a few months ago now, she spoke briefly about this program and the way in which that councils would be able to make recommendations for the roads that we would like to see transferred, and express the importance for that, the advocacy of roads for recategorisation should remain as stable as possible. We don't want to see councils putting up 2 roads 1 month at a meeting and additional roads further down the line and flip-flopping backwards and forwards. So I'm happy to see us sort of put forward a position on the roads in which we would like to see sort of most in need of recategorisation, and I would look forward to any benefit that the state government can bring us in terms of reducing our financial and safety burdens across the LGA.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I'd just like to see if Councillor Lee would like could add a wording change. Just if we can scroll back up to dot point 1. Is significant increased volumes of traffic, most notably heavy and emergency vehicles, if we could. So where it's got significantly increased volumes and then add of traffic, most notably heavy and emergency vehicles. No, sorry, it's there. There's one above as well. Yeah, so there'd be 2 spots to put it. Sorry, yeah. And it's significantly increased volumes of traffic, most notably of heavy and emergency vehicles, and also there's one above in the same.
No, she's copied that.
Sorry, yeah, right. Yep. Thank God for that.
Happy to support that.
Happy to have, yep. Seconder, Pavlovsky, you happy to adopt that? Okay. All right, any further discussion? No further discussion? All right, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Okay, now moving on to councillor reports. Is there any councillor reports at all? No councillor reports. Look, I'll just briefly summarise this. We're speaking about advocacy with the New South Wales State Government, and noted Jenny Atchison there, so I had a chance to meet with the minister there in Sydney, along with a host of other ministers as well, so it was very worthwhile, even directly with the Premier. Cost shifting was on the agenda. This is part of the JO. Would love to see more costs shifted back onto state government. So that was some very good discussion there. I'll just highlight some things here. The CWA also celebrating their 99th annual meeting, which is fantastic. The keynote speaker being Brian McGuigan, who was, he felt he was really interrupted and got gonged off stage. I think it's the first time for Brian McGuigan. But anyway, Kiroi Pachung, they're doing fantastic things in our community, and we just endorsed a grant to go in their favour as well. So I just wanted to make mention of the Kiroi Pachung group, because the corporation, should I say, because they do such fantastic things. Without them, NAIDOC Day doesn't exist in our community. They're the driving force behind that. I hope most councillors, if you had the opportunity to go to the Postie Bike Grand Prix, it was phenomenal. Great event held every year. It's the race that stops Cessnock, if not the Hunter Valley. You could not get that approved again, I don't think, if you tried, it wouldn't happen. So it's definitely a keeper, and it's a mainstay in the community. So we definitely want to keep supporting that. I could go on. There's two more things that I really want to reference here. The Western Bear site, the visit down there, they're doing exceptionally well down there. It's progressing really well. That's going to be a fantastic asset for our community, not just for the Western Bears, but Western and surrounding suburbs in general. For the Western Workers Club, they've got meeting rooms that are being facilitated through there. So it's just a fantastic amenity that's going to be for our community, and particularly for the Western Bears. There's actually a lot of great... I'm not going to do it justice because there's so many great things here, but the Kurri Kurri Gymnastics, the 40th year celebrations, I've spoken to so many people in our community that didn't realise that gymnastics actually operated out of Kurri, and they certainly do, and they've won a lot of awards. Now they can actually operate through summer, which is quite nice because they've got air conditioning and they've got bathrooms. They're doing so well down there. And I also referenced the KKCS because they need more funding for the case working, separate division of the group, but great there. Last thing, and rounding off with Ward D that I'll mention tonight, and again, there's so many different things. If anyone's got any questions, please ask me. But the TAFE Kurri Kurri Campus Tour, that is a TAFE that punches well above its weight. I had a fantastic tour all the way through Kurri TAFE. What it actually offers for this region and surrounding region is second to none. The winemaking, in particular, the science behind that, the facilities they've got, are world class. So it's a real asset to our community. And again, going back to the minister, Mr. Atchison, I mentioned before, advocating for bus services and bus stops. We definitely need some better bus services around Kurri, so more students can attend that particular TAFE a bit more of streamlined access for them. So if you've got any questions, please let me know. But yeah, it's been a fantastic month actually around Cessnock. Councillor Hill.
I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your glowing endorsement of all things Ward D in this month's mayoral update and report. I, myself and Councillor Hawkins, just in a private capacity, have gone out once previously in the last few months to the Kurri TAFE campus for one of their one of their student dinners that they put on for their catering courses, and it was my first time out there to the campus, and it was a fantastic sort of restaurant sit down part of their learning experience. Also, the Postie Bike Grand Prix that you referenced, I sort of was popping around there for most of the day there as well, and watched more than my fair share of people bump into the barrier in front of the TAFE building as they attempted the first corner there on the day. I just would note, I did have a catch up with some of the organisers on the day about the opening ceremony that was on the night before, and I saw some media, some amounts of media online around sort of notifying the community about when that opening was on, but just was curious whether or not there was any invitation put out to councillors. I understand it states that you were there at the opening ceremony event, although someone I spoke to on the night said council wasn't represented on the night of the opening there on the 25th of October, the Saturday night. And so I was just curious as to whether or not that was something that was like an event that, I mean, councillors might have got an invitation on our calendar. I don't believe I had something for it. And I just, I felt maybe a bit like a deer in a headlight speaking to someone there at the event when they noted that council wasn't represented at the opening ceremony on the Saturday.
Yeah, no, good pick up, Councillor Hill. And that was an item that, it was definitely in the diary and noted there were councillors that were lined up to attend.
Yep.
So actually I might need to, if I'm going to make a report of that, that needs to actually be corrected. The opening ceremony, I was definitely there to open up the race.
Yep.
So I classify that as the official opening ceremony of the race to annotate that. But yeah, so basically that would need to be fixed. But it was a fantastic event. That actually lines following up from that. There's a good meeting that happened today of the Hunter Valley Wine Tourism Association with conflicting schedules and events in the area.
Yep.
There's so much that goes on in the Hunter Valley.
100%.
There's there and where do you go? So there's something there that can actually collaborate all together. So yeah. Is there any other questions? No. All right. Well, declare the meeting closed at 8:26. Thank you very much.